Connect. My name's Rick. I'm going to take a minute to give thanks to my loving higher power, who I believe is our collective loving higher power, for me to be able to stand here today at Camp Mac and hopefully with his help share some experience, strength, and hope on an emotional and spiritual crisis. I was in that crisis and didn't actually know how to identify it. In another program of recovery where I was abstaining from a particular drug for months, and turned out it wasn't enough. My higher power put me in a place emotionally and spiritually that was not pleasant. It was very painful. And yet somehow the thought that I didn't know what to do never crossed my mind. I followed some suggestions, and I worked 3 steps on a napkin in a coffee house and was assigned to do a 4-step. The upshot of that is I got clean because I needed to do an honest 4-step. And through that process, in the other fellowship, being honest about using, up to the day I started writing my 4-step, I was told that I couldn't share a 5th step for 30 days until I dealt with the first 3 steps on the pills in the pot. Being in a spiritual emotional crisis and being told no when you ask for help is one of the worst feelings in the world. I was probably clinically insane, borderline psychotic, and suicidal thoughts for a whopping 2 hours before I picked up the phone and started calling around to find out where Narcotics Anonymous meeting was. You know, I'd been in a program of recovery for 9 months at that point, and I knew that help was available. I just didn't know where to find it. That night I walked into my first closed meeting of Narcotics Anonymous, got a white key tag. Everyone was laughing and screaming because they were just fresh off of a New Year's dance, which was really amazing, fun fellowship that I didn't give a fuck about because I was hurting and I needed help. About 15 minutes into the meeting, I said, "My name's Rick, I'm an addict," and the moderator said, "Oh no, Mr. White Key Tag dude, we'll let you share at the end of the meeting." And I said, "Well, sir, if I don't share now, I don't know what's going to happen." I proceeded to ask for help, explain the situation, and after the meeting, 5 men walked up to me and offered their time to share a 5th step. It says in the basic text, we have never seen an addict ask for help and not receive it in Narcotics Anonymous. So the clean date, when I picked up the pop pipe with a pen and paper and a blank page and a 4-step guide and said that's not an honest way to work a step, the day after that's my clean date, was 12/31/95. 3 days later, I walked into Narcotics Anonymous and worked a 5th step. So the journey that I'm going to describe today, pretty much my life for the last 1.5 years, and where we can go to the bitter ends with or without the use of drugs. I had some great ideas. I kind of did some math. I knew I would be working until I retired at 67, but I had some money in the bank and an opportunity to be of service to a coworker by taking a hit on a layoff. So I walked out of a $40,000 a year job because I had this. I had a plan. I was going to be semi-retired for a year. I rode my motorcycle. I rode my motorcycle 6,500 miles. Probably 7,200 miles in that first 6 weeks because I made 4 NA events. The last one was in the UP of Michigan because I was chasing a Scandinavian goddess that had a little bit more clean time than me. And from there, I went to the World Convention. And then things didn't work out in the UP. Yeah, I was suffering. I get heart sick pretty easy. Through that, winter came. My budget wasn't that great to begin with. and I had a gallbladder surgery in January or February, so now I'm in debt by $20,000 or $30,000, which means that whatever available cash is up for grabs, because I'm never going to pay the 20 or 30. So, what's a couple hundred, a couple thousand. Through that year, kept nipping away at retirement funds just to keep my 1 year of planned semi-retirement going. And then the next winter, me and the couch and the recliner and the TV and potato chips and, we're forming a real loving bond. I didn't want to go to meeting because every time I started the car, all I could hear is the cash machine at the gas pump going ding, ding, ding. It was costing money. So I got to the point where, I would still talk to 2 or 3 addicts once a week, the people who were my core group. I got to the point where once they settled the hockey strike, I was watching every hockey game available on TV because it gave me a sense of purpose. I came to the point where I'd find any excuse in the world not to deal with anybody in Narcotics Anonymous. And I still showed up at the one meeting a week that I had committed to because it was only 4.5 miles away, so it didn't cost me that much to go. But just like it said in that reading, I was slowly committing suicide. With recognition of my state and not giving a fuck. I didn't care. Did not care. There was a newcomer got into my life, kind of helped them through a little crisis period. Was good for me to have somebody there, because the places I went when no one was around, my psychologist friend calls it a suicide plan, and I was there. Come February, anniversary of going into debt because of an operation I didn't want to do, camping season became 2 months away, and I live for these functions in camping. It's been a touchstone in my recovery since day one. Well, seeing as my clean date's basically January, it was actually month 4 or 5, but since then I really do this stuff. The degree of fellowship I find at campouts around the fire with addicts is beyond comparison. So I found a home was coming up, Johnny's home area. I said, if I can just make it there. If I can get to that campfire, somehow, I'll be better. So that weekend comes, I actually had to chip into almost the bare bottom of whatever cash reserve I was pulling out of a 401k. So I wasn't broke financially, I was close. I was spiritually and emotionally bankrupt. I was in debt. I don't like how it felt. I was considering all the alternatives. The least appeasing alternative at that point was to go back using. So I get to this campfire the first night. My dear friend David shared, but I was out getting Mexican because it was raining like cats and dogs. The next afternoon around the campfire, Johnny spoke up because he'd been reading out of Living Clean. And there was a couple paragraphs at that point that had really struck him. And I asked him to borrow the book because a couple weeks ago we got a chance, and I think I found the paragraph or two he read, but I'm going to paraphrase. Later in recovery, members with substantial clean time find that they no longer care about their bodies, about the state of their mental health. They do not fear dying because of the many times and attempts and ways and means they had found to die before they got in recovery. It's not a strange place for us. It talked about the comfortable relationship that we had with eating too much, sleeping too much, not living up to commitments. He read 2 paragraphs. I'm sitting there crying and motherfucking his ass. Motherfucking Johnny. I motherfucked the people who wrote that book. I motherfucked the fellowship. After the meeting broke up, I walked up to Johnny. I hugged him. I said, "You motherfucker." HP was putting me back on a path. 3 weeks after that, I was coming to Camp Mac last year. I hadn't gotten any better. I hadn't got better at all. I got worse. I was in recognition that help's available. Our fellowship as a whole has these common feelings with the suggestion of, not we know what to do. We need to hear this as if we're a newcomer. Solutions in the steps. Get a sponsor, read the book, work the steps, or die, motherfucker. Eat cheese, that's Wisconsin. So I come here knowing, yeah, it's always going to charge my batteries here at Camp Mac. We grow with love. There's this curtain of spirituality and serenity as I come in every year. And I felt it, and I felt that things were going to work out, but I didn't have a clue how. So I sought out my friends. They're not close in distance. We're close in recovery. The 2 that I was searching down, I'm particularly close with. And I was going to ask each of them for help. And Friday went by, and Friday you're greeting new friends, doing this, doing that, whatever. Getting plugged into the energy here again. Saturday comes, and I never could quite. I think I had opportunity a few times to individually ask David or Mark for help. But I was at that point where I'd been before trying to find a sponsor where I wasn't even going to look at my toes and utter the words. And I believe it was about this time last year that they were both together over by the cabin in the campfire ring. And I said, "David, Mark, I need help." I went farther. I said, "I need an intervention." It's not a word we use around here. It has significance. I said, "If I don't get help now, I don't know what's going to happen." The exact words I said when I asked for help at my first NA meeting. I kind of knew it took 15, 20 minutes, which was a lifetime and a half to me, but they're involved with other things and people here, and they told me, yes, give me a minute, settle my stuff, and we'll clear the slate. And we went to a quiet place, and I reiterated, crying, "I need help, I don't know what I'm going to do." I didn't say, "I don't know what to do." I said, "I don't know what I'm going to do." And I told them what the last half year especially had accelerated emotionally and spiritually. Because emotionally, it's just like the physical body says in the basic text, an addict can sustain an enormous amount of pain. It's not just in my physical body. I've gone through getting crowns in my teeth. The doctor shows up with the needle. I go, "Nah," because I find I don't like grinding my teeth for 3 days. I don't like the after effects. I sustained a high level of pain. And I look back, and it was the emotional and the spiritual pain. Emotionally, pretty much dead. Didn't care. About the only thing sustaining me was the fact that there was a young member in recovery that was pretty much looking to me for guidance at that stage of recovery they were in. The only thing sustaining me at that time, was that relationship. And I thank God for it. So I wasn't going through a ragged roller coaster of emotional crisis. But when I'm emotionally dead for months, that's a crisis. Spiritually, I follow a path of spirituality that has specific practices. I had bought my house 4 miles away, geographically, from where I prayed. And this person that was involved in both my recovery and my spiritual growth had an accident at work that was his fault that almost killed himself and 2 coworkers. I was so fucking pissed at him because he lost his job. It didn't take him long to land on his feet. He came out smelling like a rose after a termination for a cardinal safety violation at one place. You got a better job. You know, things are looking up for him. I was glad for him that he didn't have to suffer through consequences. That's what happens to good people, even though we're human and make mistakes. The job was outside of St. Louis, 5 hours away. So the geographical location of my spiritual base just became remote. At that point, remote to the point of invisibility, because I'm still at the point of not wanting to start the car to go to a meeting because it cost me $12.50 to go to the second closest meeting to my house. So I'm still just making the one. My spirituality was suffering. I maintained my contact, barely. I said my morning prayers, barely. I would catch myself 2 hours after waking up saying, "You didn't say him again." Reset button. Thank you. God, I love you. Please guide me in my choices today. Please help me today. Thank you, God. I love you. It's my morning prayers. I firmly believe that that thread of contact with my higher power was about the only thing that was keeping an image, and not necessarily a thought or an obsession. But as my psychologist friend says, the suicide plan was in place. The image was reoccurring. Outside behind the shed, they'll find my body within 2 days, but it won't be immediate. So I asked 2 of my dearest friends in recovery, whose recovery I respect and admire, and I've known both of them for 16 years at least. And I trust them with my life. And I screwed up the courage. And I couldn't look them in the eye. I don't think I was looking at my shoes. Couldn't look them in the eye. And I asked for help. And I explained just what I shared to you guys. You know, when I talked to other people, I was committing suicide by potato chip and not giving a care in the world. And in reality, the image was still there. The more immediate image. We talked for an hour and a half. I had to become open-minded to a few simple and a few not-so-simple suggestions. Like I said, my friend's a psychologist. Believe it or not, I think I had a list of 6 things. I know for a fact one of them was attend more meetings. I know for a fact that one of the suggestions, with a deadline, because these loving brothers in recovery knew me, to get a sponsor within 30 days. I know for a fact one of the suggestions was start reading the literature again, start journaling. I'm resistant to some suggestions. 60 days later, I am looking at the tops of my shoes and asking a man who had come into my life through the friendship that I had with one of the friends I asked for help. I've known this guy for over 10 years, one weekend a year. I added that up. I've known this guy for a month. Over 10 years. I sat in a meeting with this guy 10 times. I seen him deal in his personal relationship with his wife and his friendship with my friend and with strangers. And not all the strangers we're presented with in the situation we're in are necessarily in recovery, although they are members of NA for the most part. I saw him get mad maybe once. And he didn't cause any damage or wreckage by inserting his own will on top of his anger. So we went for a walk down the creek in this beautiful, idyllic setting. I'm looking at my toes and I'm crying again. I asked this man to be my sponsor. It was simpler than the first time, but it wasn't any easier. And he said yes and laid out a few simple suggestions. One of the suggestions was to immediately start working a first step. When people around here say the steps saved their lives, the steps saved my life. Following suggestions saved my life. What ultimately began that process was me getting a refusal of embarrassing my ego, hurting my pride, and appearing less than a perfect recovering addict with some clean time, and asking for help. The front screen of my phone, when it comes on, shows a campfire and a picnic table and a chair. And if you look close underneath the table on the bench of the campfire, there's a basic text, there's a composition book, and there's a pen. 30 days after that man became my sponsor, we found a time and a place around a tent and a campfire that was only an hour and a half, 2 hours from his house. And I shared my first step with him. 90 days after asking for 2 addicts to help save my life. I was still jibble-jabbled on the whole spiritual thing. I'm not sure I've worked that out to this day. It's so distant. I feel the distance. Emotionally, I was slightly better, but still liable to snap off at the old lady that wanted to push in front of me at the grocery store. The therapeutic value of one addict sharing with another. We shared the first step. It was one of the gut level, emotionally driven, spiritual first steps I've ever done. Old school. He gives me 3 questions, I answer them. It still takes 6 pages. So he went back after we had dinner. I camped out. I'm on my way back home. And the phone rings. Because even before reaching out for help in NA, I realized that this whole 1 year off that turned into more than 2, I needed to become productive, responsible, acceptables on other people, not me, member of society. And so I started applying for jobs, and this had been 6 months. And I'd had 3 face-to-face interviews, one of which was for a kick-ass job that I was fully qualified for and was kind of heartbroken it didn't come through. I was heartbroken because I shaved my playoff beard in June to go to a job interview. So the phone rings, I'm in the car, I'm actually stopping about halfway home because there's a BMW motorcycle dealership up there, Grand Rapids. And this guy says, I talked to so-and-so, because I'd had a phone interview 2 weeks before that, wanted me to come to Lafayette for not a great amount of money, and it's over 90 minutes from my house. It didn't seem like a winner, and we're talking. He says, I've got another alternative. I'll get to you. And this guy says, I'm from such and such a company, talked to so-and-so, I think you're perfect to come and help us. Orientation is tomorrow. I said, I'm traveling, I have nothing to write on, I need to sit while I'm talking to you, and I'll get back to you when I get home. And it turned out we had that conversation finally 15 minutes before a meeting that I knew I was making, the one that cost me $12.50 of gas to get to. But at that point, I'd worked the first step. I was feeling a little bit better about trying to get to recovery. And we talked, and he said, you show up at 7 in the morning in Noblesville, Indiana, you'll have a day's orientation, and 3 days from then, we need you in Kansas. And the job he described was 80% of an ideal job if I'd laid it on paper. This happened the day after I shared my first step. There's only one promise in Narcotics Anonymous. An addict, any addict, can stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way of life. I get back involved in helping me save my life through the help of others in Narcotics Anonymous. I work a step with a sponsor. And these miracles start popping up in my life. I get to Kansas the day before work, it's 100 degrees. I go to a meeting in a clubhouse. Fellowship in Topeka, Kansas is off the charts, period. It's one of the oldest fellowships in the nation. Fell right in. I had my support. I was working 60, 70-hour weeks and making 3-4 meetings. I get to work my second step in Leavenworth, Kansas with my sponsor because he just happens to be passing by. I get to share my third step during an ISNAC convention in March. And we share it at my old stomping grounds 2 blocks from my house, parked overlooking the lake at Lake County Fairgrounds. I'm working on my 4th step. I hadn't gotten a home group. I moved to Lafayette. When I came back, they finally wrote me into the job I originally didn't want. But at that point, I'm not going to refuse what's apparently God's will. Job's working out fine. Recovery is work that I need, apparently, to do. And things are shaping up. Camping season's back on. Johnny and I shared a couple of weeks ago how much a motherfucker he is for reading 2 random paragraphs a year and a couple weeks ago that kicked my ass so hard that I was finally humbled to the point that I reached out and asked for help. I'm healing from emotional and psychological, spiritual damage to the core of me. I've been healing for a year. One of the discussions I had with my sponsor was whether it would be helpful to continue in the steps at that point. And I'm like, why stop now? God's had me in so many situations in the last year that I just close my eyes. I forget about what my plan was. It's not even close to what I was thinking, and I say yes, and miracles are happening in my life, left and right. So I actually had to get a new home group. Something about working a 4-step, people, cover your bases. What we suggest, it's there for a reason regardless of time or recovery. And I've been without a home group for over 3 months because it had been on Wednesday and I'm working in Lafayette, so guess what? My new home group's on Wednesday. It just happens to fit. And the next day I start working step 4 through this beautiful 3-page process. It's going to take me probably 45, 60 pages, somewhere in there. I've been through the flat book somewhat. I helped with the approval process. I'm working off of Greg P's original 3-page worksheet that got formulated into the 4-step work guide. It's brutal. I'm doing all right, I thought. I'm writing a half an hour, chunking through, not paying lip service, being mindful of my answers. It's all about assets and all about liabilities for every question. Wednesday, I was finishing up the section on friendships, non-sexual, parentheses in there, non-sexual. I get to work and I'm modeling. It's not depressed. It's not giving a fuck. It's just, meh. My coworker says you're moody. Why are you moody? I didn't pay attention to that. Mind you, I went to school in West Lafayette. I'm 7 miles away from where I lived for 5 years, pretending to be a college student and learning how to be an addict. And there's unfinished business there as far as working the steps and recognizing proper perspective in my life. I had a moment of thought. And the thought process went to, I'm never going to be loved the way I want to be loved. To what's the point? To the recognition of this is the state of mind, spiritually and emotionally I was in when I was 21 years old and I swallowed 3 bottles of 3 different pills chased with straight up alcohol in a suicide attempt at a very young age. Fortunately, God intervened. I had to do unusual things to make myself puke, and I slept for 2 days. And my girlfriend at the time insisted I go to a psychiatrist for some reason. Oh, this was well before I had a problem, people. You know. And it wasn't a cry for help, it was a direct answer to what's the point. Mind you, this isn't a thought, it's not an idea, this is a vision. This is where you were, Rick. Exactly where you were 30 whatever years ago. 8 miles away, alone in an apartment, thinking there's no frickin' future in front of you that's acceptable to how you're thinking. The next series of thoughts wouldn't have occurred to that 21-year-old. What's the point? What's it matter? Does not matter what I think. It does not matter what I feel. What matters is what am I doing? And then it dawns on me, in the basic text it says the results of this step are a reduction of ego. And I saw shards of this stuff flew away from my body. That my conscious mind said, that's your ego. It's not a perfect process. It's kind of like gravity. I saw it flowing away and, you know, like I'm so fragile and stuff that, yeah, it's back. It has changed a little bit. I have recognition of ego in my life. Don't think I did so much before. And that vision of that 21-year-old killing himself because there's no fucking point attained a more proper perspective in the life of a recovering addict. And the point is, I don't know. And it doesn't matter that I don't know. It matters, what am I doing? And I'm following suggestions that started here last year. Simple suggestions that to this day are saving my life, emotionally and spiritually. Thank God today that I'm an addict. I see that as a milestone in any recovering addict's life when I can sit in a meeting and you still make me cry when I hear, today I'm grateful to be an addict. For the first time out of someone's mouth, regardless of 3 months or 3 years, it doesn't matter. The first time I hear that from an addict, I go, thank God. So I'm very, ain't enough V's in the universe, very grateful to be here today and to be able to share a story of experience, strength, and hope. Because believe me, I have recognition today of miracles in my life directly through my involvement with Narcotics Anonymous, directly involved with the fact that I'm clean today, and directly involved with the fact that those stupid-ass suggestions that we all hear for the first time work in my life today. Get a sponsor. Read the literature. Work the steps or die, motherfucker. I'm grateful for everyone in here. I love you because whether I've hugged you this weekend or not, you're part of my recovery, and I need everyone here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. It was brought to my attention I didn't say the name of the workshop, which is Emotional/Spiritual Crisis. Our next speaker is Loretta.
Hi, I'm Loretta and I'm an addict. When I seen this topic, I said, okay, that's me. You know, I've been through so many emotional and spiritual crises during my life, during my addiction, and since I've been clean. First, let me state, I do qualify. And in August, I will have 26 years. And it's been a lot of work, but I've been okay with it. You know, I'm just gonna run through some of the crises, and then so you'll know who I am and why I go through the things that I'm going through. The first one, being molested by 4 people in my family from the age of 8 to 12. One of them getting me drunk since I was 8. Getting married at 16, pregnant. The baby dying. She lived a day. And exactly a month later, her father tried to shoot me. I got out of the way of the bullet, but I didn't get out of the way of him. And he picked me up and threw me out of a 4-story window, and I broke my back in 4 places. The doctor's telling me, you'll never be able to walk again, and you won't have children. A month later, they see me coming down the hallway on some crutches. Somebody stuck in my room accidentally. And then end up having 4 children. 2 of them twins. And dealing with the emotions behind it. And the question of why God me. I've always had a God. For the first half of my life, it was that fire and brimstone one. He worked for me, you know, because there was a lot of situations I was in that I should have been dead. and he kept me here. Then coming into the program, you know, I'd stayed up all night that last night I used, and I told a friend of mine, if you would just stay here with me, I wouldn't go out and use. I was in and out that house all night long. And that morning, I looked at the TV and there was that commercial, this is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs. That's the first time I ever heard of Narcotics Anonymous. And because I had sold a phone, I ran across the street and called the number. And they told me a meeting to go to. And then they told me the next day this hospital in Detroit, Herman Kiefer, to go to. And I haven't used since. Being 7 years clean, the youngest of 5, my mother dying unexpectedly, and the 4 older than me could not handle it. I had to plan a funeral by myself. The next year, my father, same thing. The next year, my brother, same thing. Then marrying an addict who lied to me about their clean time. And he figured since I had 10 years clean, I could handle anything. Oh, he gave me hell. Everybody in Detroit knew me. They knew exactly who I was because of him and the stuff he would do at meetings. Holler across the room, bitch, do you hear me talking to you? And him messing around on me, and then whoever the girl, well, he eventually married her after, but her stalking me at meetings, threatening to walk up behind me and bust me in the head. Thank God I did what the program had told me early on, allow people to get to know me, be honest at tables about what's really going on with you, and if somebody run with it, let them, long as you don't take it home with you. And with me doing that, the people in the fellowship protected me to the point of where they would sit. I would sit at the table, and the guys would put their chairs around me in the back so she couldn't walk up behind me. And at that time, I was smoking, so I'd go outside to smoke a cigarette. And I'd go sit in my car, and I could see her coming. And I could see 5 guys right behind her to stop her. And then finally getting out of that situation, and 3 months later meeting another guy who ended up stalking me for a year. Coming out to dance at night, my phone rings, and one of my cousins is walking me to my car, and they're going, bitch, what the hell you got on, and who the fuck is that nigga walking with you? And he would terrify me. I could be in my yard doing the grass and stuff with my son, and I'd see a car that kind of looked like his coming down the street, and I'd run in the driveway and hide in front of my car, and my son would get so angry because he said, you actually think I would let somebody hurt you? But my fear was just that great. Same thing, except for he would come to meetings, he would sit way over there in the corner while everybody's over here and just stare at me. And the guys would walk me to my car, and they would make sure he couldn't take off in his car to follow me. Dealing with that fear, trying to keep some hope alive, trying to believe that no matter what happens, I knew I was doing the right thing for the right reasons and my God would protect me. And evidently he did, because I got through it. And then 3 years ago, my sister dying, a sister who hated me all her life, a sister who was 10 years older than me and had Down syndrome, which I didn't know till a month before she died. And everybody in fellowship was talking about, well, couldn't you tell her face was round? No. Nobody in my family mentioned it. My mother would not say the words. And my sister lived to be 63. And I was the one who was taking care of her at the end, her still hating me. I forgot to mention my parents didn't like me either. They were 44 when I came along, which I found out later. My father was typical whole alcoholic, don't come home with the money, trying to be my mom. And she had got fed up and got ready to leave and found out she was pregnant with me. And back in those days, you don't have babies by yourself. And both of them was 44, so she stayed. And the resentment, now I realize it was the resentment at the situation, not at me. But you couldn't tell me that when I was a little kid. Something must have been wrong with me if I got these people doing these things to me. My sister don't like me, my mama don't like me, and my daddy ain't crazy about me. It's got to be me. I was the common denominator. But coming in this program and working with my sponsors, and then losing my first sponsor to cancer, these steps helped me work through my emotions. Because after I got in the program, I realized when I deal with something, when something happens, I don't cry right then. All my stuff is delayed reaction. It might come a day later, it might come 3 months later, and then I'd have to deal with it. And with the steps, I was able to deal with it emotionally and then be able to come to some way spiritually that there was a reason God allowed this to happen, whatever it was. And then I would look back and see, okay, what did I learn from each situation? Either I learned something or I got stronger. And I found out most of it was the getting stronger part. And in these last couple of years, oh baby, 2 years, 2 days before I came here, I was diagnosed with lung cancer. And they did a biopsy the night before, the night that they diagnosed me. And I thought me not being able to breathe was, par for the course. I didn't know they had punctured my lung. And people kept saying, you going and you can't breathe? Hell yeah, I'm going. I ain't missed Camp Mac. We've been here, 16, 18 years? Ain't no way in the hell I'm missing Camp Mac. So I came, and it's my home group. Well, both my home groups. I had my West Side home group meet my East Side home group, and they come together. And right now, my East Side is out there barbecuing because I wanted to eat afterwards, and my West Side is right here. And my East Side done heard all this. So I told them, just make sure my food ready when I leave. They took part of my lung when I got back. And I have 4 kids, 18 grandkids, and 1 great. And my kids, cancer scares the hell out of them. So instead of them coming towards me, they go in the opposite direction. When I really need them, like when I get out the hospital that first week, they got schedules going to make sure I got my medicine and all of that. After that week, and I get some strength to be able to do something for myself, they leave. They don't call or see if I'm breathing. They don't come to see if the dog done bit me from me and him fighting. I'll tell you about the dog I got. This my man. At least he thinks so. And dealing with cancer is real hard because people don't know what to say to you. They can't fix you, so they don't know what to say. But what they don't realize is you still gotta pay the bills. I had just bought a house I didn't want, and that was God, because he knew I was going to be diagnosed with this, and I was going to need some place to stay, and I wasn't going to be able to work. And everything in the house worked. The only thing was missing was the knobs on the kitchen sink, the knobs in the bathtub, and the shower head. The furnace and the water tank was 5 years old. It was a brick house, driveway, garage, big backyard, nice front yard. Only thing I was missing was the awning on the porch so I could sit under my awning. But I still wanted to, do the decorating and stuff like that. I didn't have the energy to move stuff. And with that diagnosis and then having to go through the chemo afterwards, I realized I needed a sense of humor for myself. And everybody that knows me knows I wear wigs. And y'all are truly blessed, because I wore it the first day and took that sucker off. And because most people don't see my hair. But boy, when I got up here, I'm like, I'm letting it all hang out. But, and I told the nurses, you know how people tell you, oh, you're going to be sick. Oh, you're going to throw up. Oh, you're going to lose your hair. Oh, and none of that happened to me. And I told them, if I was going to throw up, I had a wig for every day I was going to be cute as hell. And didn't even get sick, ate like a pig for 6 months of that chemo. But sitting in that chemo by myself, seeing other people with their family members and their friends, and nobody calling me because they didn't know what to say, nobody coming to see me because they didn't know what to say. And like I was saying, they forget that there are other things. You are not the cancer. The cancer is a part of you. I still needed to learn how to pour cement because my basement was leaking and I needed to put some cement around the outside of the house. How do I fix a leaking pipe? How do I fix some other stuff? But when I sat at the table, everybody got quiet. And they really didn't address me. So that made me had to really get with my higher power. And really come to a decision, even though I knew I wasn't going to die, because it was stage 1. They said if they took half my lung, I'd be okay. And they told me, cancer usually comes back within 5 years. I've been cancer-free so far, but these last few days I got a feeling it's back. But I came to grips with it that, I started thinking, okay, I got a God. I believe that I am my spirit, not this body. And I started thinking other people would call it morbid. I call it being real with myself. What happens if I die? And my thing is this. I won't have to worry about my kids not calling me, not coming to see me, my grandkids either, or them just calling me because they want something. I don't have to worry about this power struggle me and this pit bull got. I don't have to worry about somebody trying to break in my house no more. I don't have to worry about trying to budget my little Social Security money to make sure I got gas to get to a meeting at the end of the month. And I found out if I die, I ain't gonna do it no way, but it'll be relief in some things. I won't have to deal with no more. So today I'm not afraid to die. But it also taught me how to be grateful for the little things. I woke up this morning and I didn't do it myself. Back to the cancer part. 2 months after the end of my chemo and me being cancer-free, I go to the doctor and they found out that I have a hereditary bone disease and my bones are disintegrating. And the vertebrae in my back, every part is like a millimeter off, so it's not straight. Plus I have scoliosis, there's a curve in it. So if you see me leaning forward, I'm not falling, that's straight to me. And that brings on a lot of pain. Pain pills don't work for me, they knock the edge off. So you see me walking slow, you see me walking anywhere, you see me sitting anywhere, I am in pain. I am in pain standing here. But I've also learned, like I said, on how to be grateful for the little things. I may be in pain standing here, but I'm standing here. You know, and NA is very important to me. I take it very seriously, to where I will come to a meeting where there's a treatment center and everybody in that room was getting homework. I don't care if you throw it in the garbage, I gave it to you. Well, they call it homework, I call it recovery information. And my job as a recovering addict is to give what was so freely given to me. So I buy that case of paper and don't ask for no money. I buy that toner and bought that copier. I didn't ask nobody for no money. But I want everybody to recover like me. But I've been around here long enough to know some people ain't in here to recover. And that some people, especially in Detroit, there's quite a few people with my amount of clean time that's just clean. And they haven't even got the first spiritual awakening that they need to change something. You know, and but back to this bone disease, there's nothing I can do about it. The middle part of my back is what I broke in 4 places. Just last August, they did the bottom part of my back. The beginning of last year, they did my neck. So all I got left for them to do is the top part of my back. I got to get my knees replaced. I need my hips done. My shoulders eventually will get done. And then they found out that part of my heart is enlarged and there's something wrong with the valve. And it beats erratically. I have muscle spasms all over my body. Now, I did not tell you all that for you to sit up and feel sorry for me. That's the worst thing you could ever do to me. And I got a button say, don't make me put you on my 8th step. So don't make me put you on my 8th step. Your ass better not pity me. Because I am one grateful sister. I am happy. When I come to Camp Mac, I get spiritually filled. Now, when I get to that 11th month before Camp Mac get here, it's like I'm on my period for that whole month that I don't have anymore. It's like I have no tolerance for bullshit from nobody, nowhere, and I will tell you exactly what I think about some shit you said. So if you don't want to know, don't ask me. I know how bad I get, so sometimes I'll go to the meeting and I won't even share. Because I heard some shit at the meeting and I'm liable to tell them exactly what I think about them. And God has given me this gift of being able to feel what other people feel when they share. And not only do I feel what they share, I feel what they don't share. So when they're sharing some surface shit and I feel the real shit and they not sharing that part, I'll be done told them in a minute, why don't you quit lying and share the real shit that's fucking with you? You know what I'm saying? But it is not my responsibility for their recovery. My responsibility is for mine. And they share my experience, my strengths, and my hopes. So I have to watch myself that last month before I get to Camp Mac to refill. You know, I had said earlier, because I was in here listening to the speaker, and I have to follow what my body says. And all of a sudden, this real strong pain just hit my whole body. And it feels like my bones are muscles. And somebody got every part of it, and they're squeezing the hell out of it. And it's like my bones are reacting like muscles. So that shit hurt. And I had to get up and go lay down. And I said I was going to lay down for about an hour because one of my home group members was going to speak. But my body said, no, you're not. And I went into a deep sleep and slept right past her speaking, and I almost slept past lunch. You know, but I have to do what my body tells me. When it says go lay down, go lay down. When it says you could sit there and listen for a while, sit there. You know, sometimes if I sit too long, somebody got to pull me up out that chair. You know, but it is what it is. This is my life. I'm not angry about it. I came to realize the spiritual part of me, that I don't care why God is allowing to happen to me what's happening, but I do know the message that comes out of it is to let other recovering addicts know that there is no excuse to use. If I can go through this, and my bone disease also make my teeth rot and fall out. That's why I'm bald-headed in the mouth and I look like a vampire. And it takes me forever to eat, but damn, the food be good. You know, but there's no excuse for you to use. Nothing. There's nothing for me to complain about. Nothing. Because there are some people worse off than me. So I am grateful as hell. Because just think how many people we knew that died in active addiction. And for some reason, he chose us to be in this program and to change how we think and how we feel about things, to grow up where we didn't grow up before. You know, I don't think I'm gonna die for a while, but the spiritual part of me has already told my daughters and my son what goes where, who does what. My obituary is on my computer, and I use the picture. I want it. You know, and the parts that, you know, your kids don't ask you what your life was like. They just think you old and you don't know nothing. But I've been letting my grandkids know the dumb shit I did when I was younger. And they sit there and look at me like, not grandma. Yeah, grandma used to sneak out the house at 16 and was messing with this 24-year-old boy about 4 blocks away. And yeah, I'd be out there at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd come in the door and my daddy was sitting there and he'd catch me and he'd tell my mama, whose name was Exie, he'd say, Exie, she been smoking them weeds. You know? Yeah, I can look back on my life and all the things that have happened to me has only made me stronger. And I see why I needed the strength. I said this morning, Scott, I wasn't walking to the tree because it didn't seem like I had the energy. But damn it, I'm going to that tree. Shoot, I come up here every time. I'm going to the tree. Another spiritual part for me is the people in this fellowship who I have gotten to know, and they've known me. The 2 years ago when I had the cancer, I couldn't walk. They drove me everywhere I needed to go. Like we were at the lodge at the other end down there by the burnt out one, and we were eating there. They would drive me from Sarah Manor to down there and help me down the stairs so I could eat, get me back up the stairs, put me back in the car, and drive me back. I wanted to see the tree, but I knew I couldn't walk. So Scott went and found a back road. And they found that back road and they put me in that car and they drove me back there, and Scott held my hand all the way to that little bitty walk to that tree. I couldn't do nothing but sit there and smile like an idiot and cry that they loved me that much. And all I ever wanted was somebody to love crazy me for who I am and to accept me for who I am. That's why I love both my homegirls, because they do. And then Scott had to go marry my sister. And she loves me just as much. So I got a good life. I'm rich as hell. May not have a lot of money. And like I say, I got a pit bull. I fight him every day. We decide who's going to be the boss, and it's going to be me. And I understand why I got this pit bull. I thought I was getting him because the house I had just bought, people knew I was sick, and I've been sick ever since I moved in that house, because 3 weeks after the lung surgery is when I actually got to move in the house. So everybody knew I was sick. And people had been trying to break in, and then I kept asking God, I need a dog, I need a dog. And I don't have the money. My Social Security, my disability hadn't came in yet. Somehow God was keeping the lights on, the gas on, the water. And the taxes got paid. I don't know how, still. All I know, the money showed up and I paid what I was supposed to pay. And I was asking God, I don't have the money to buy this dog, and my twins had bought 2 labs at the Zoo Plaza, or whatever they called it, and they paid $150 per dog. I ain't had that kind of money. And my cousin came by to see me one day, and she said she had just got this dog from this lady, and she thinks she had one more. So I drove way out in Farmington and got the dog and came back. This dog is the neediest dog I have ever met in my damn life. He thinks you're supposed to rub him 24/7. Your company belongs to him, and he's gonna do what he wanna do. You could beat him down as much as you wanted to beat him down, and he's still gonna do it. And I realized God gave me that dog because at certain points during the year, I sink into a depression to where I just want to die. And that dog will not let me stay in that bed for shit. If he ain't doing nothing but at the edge of the bed and got his nose up near my ear and he's just whining in it, and if that don't work, he'll get up on the bed and just step all over me till I move, you know. And I had to get to the point to where I said, thank you, God, for the dog, even though I don't want to take care of shit. The last dog I had died, and after that dog died, I said I didn't want no more pets. I didn't want to take care of nothing but me. But evidently, I couldn't take care of me, so God had to send some dogs to take care of me. And one of my daughters, she had to move, and she couldn't take her lab with her, so she gave me that lab. So the lab is a girl, and she's 6. The pit bull will be 3 July the 4th. He's a Cancer, he's moody, and he's needy. And they take care of me. Before I had my neck surgery, the doctors was telling me if I move my neck the wrong way, I can paralyze myself. And the way the bones were, it affected my balance, so I could be walking and just fall over. I have almost fell over. I never hit the ground. Why? Because for some reason, these dogs that are not trained, one got on one side, one got on the other. I don't know how many times I almost done fell down the basement steps, and they caught me. When I couldn't get out the bed, and they seen I couldn't get out the bed, one would get on one side, one would get on the other. I could catch their collars, and they'll walk me to the bathroom, and they'll wait. And then I catch their collars, and they walk me back to the bed. That deals with a whole hell of a lot of emotions. when animals care about you that much? Seem like more than people? And then you have to, as the program, well, I'm not sure if it's the book or if I just heard it, but I know it's to be true. It's best that you understand. It's better to understand than to be understood. And emotionally, I had to come to where I understood why people didn't talk to me, why they didn't call me, why they didn't come see me, because of their fear that they couldn't fix me and they couldn't help me, so they didn't know what to say. At one point during the chemo, I know I looked like a bag of bones with some skin, and everybody thought I was gonna die. You could just see it in their face, because I had people coming up to me, hugging me, didn't even know me. You know, I had it here. But I also had my homegirl who was like, we gotta watch her. So they didn't let me out their sight. Even when I was asleep, I could somewhat hear them tip in the room and look to see, make sure I was still breathing, you know, make sure I was okay. And the people that was here hugged me and said I would be okay. And for some reason, no, not for some reason, my higher power told me when I first got the diagnosis, this peace came over me, and I knew I wouldn't die. I got that same peace right now, even though I feel like the cancer's come back, because I've been more tired than usual, and that's usually how it starts off. But I also got that peace that if it did come back, I'm not gonna die from this either. I got too much shit to do. And it's gonna take me a while to do it. Just like unpacking my house. I done had it for 2 years and I'm still unpacking. And I started off, I could unpack 1/4 of a box. And I had to go take a 2-hour nap. And I'd laugh at myself on my way to the bed. Damn, you old. You can't even unpack a box. I'd be cracking up, you know. But it's my higher power letting me know that I had to stay positive and I had to laugh. Laugh, sleep, and being positive are the things that fight the cancer and fight the bone disease and fight the heart problems. And I know people have been telling me here, why don't you just sit down, won't you? When I walk, it helps me forget that I'm hurting, because I have to concentrate on walking without falling. So I'm not thinking about the pain. So yes, I'm going to the tree and I'm gonna walk. We get there a little slower than we normally do, but I'm going. And a recovering addict took me out in the canoe, and I told her yesterday, I don't think I can pedal. She said, well, I'll do most of the pedaling, you just get in and ride. I got in, and me and girlfriend got to paddling, and I had a ball. And we must have stayed out there a good half hour, 45 minutes. She said, my arms is tired, we got to go back. I said, well, okay, you rest, I'll paddle. I was surprised my arms wasn't tired, I wasn't out of breath, I didn't need my inhaler, and I was just paddling my butt up. I was so proud of me. You know, this past December, I went through a depression the whole month of December, and that's my birthday month. I kept asking God to take me. I didn't want to hurt anymore. I didn't want to know that the kids wasn't coming. I didn't want to know that the phone wasn't ringing. I didn't want to feed the dogs. I didn't want to let them out. I didn't want to take care of them. I didn't want to go to meetings and talk to the newer members. I just didn't want to do anything else. And that whole month, I asked him to just take me. And I shared about it at meetings, and I cried the whole month of December. And New Year's Eve, I was sitting on the bed and I was exhausted, and the dog came up to me and he just pissed me off. And I said, God help me. And that's when my energy started flowing, and I realized I never asked God to help me. I asked him to take me. And I'm here. I'm okay. I'm happy. Did you come tell me that the food is ready? Okay. So I guess it's about over for me to eat. I mean over for me to talk. But that's my experience as far as emotional and spiritual crisis. You have to work through those things. You know, I talked to my sponsors all the way through. I never stopped going to meetings. I never stopped sharing exactly how I feel. Just like when you ask me now, how you doing? If I say I'm tired, shit, I'm tired. I don't have time to lie. You know, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for bullshit either. I still ain't got that fixed yet. Maybe once I make it to the tree, then I can have some more tolerance and patience when it comes to bullshit and allow people to be bullshitters if that's what they want to be and not get upset about it. But I'm grateful that I had the willingness to do this workshop because normally I don't. And I don't know what made me circle the little yes. But thanks for letting me share. It worked.
Thank you. Alrighty. I'd like to thank both the speakers, and if you'd like to join me in a group hug and a prayer.